The year was 2004, a titan year for video game releases. We were introduced to titles such as Half-Life 2, GTA San Andreas, and Halo 2, with RPGs following suit, featuring classics such as the blood-sucking brilliance of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and of course World of Warcraft beginning its reign of the king of time vampire MMORPGs. But that is not all this grand year in gaming had up its sleeve, as there was another release that would share the limelight with some of gaming's greats. A game that up until its release promised elements that had RPG fans, including 14-year-old me, waiting with bated breath as if the claims were true, would be nothing like they had experienced before. A single and multiplayer experience where if you attacked a young boy he would grow old and come back with a vengeance, sporting the scar given by the player, where you could take a wife and father children to carry on your legacy. Such detail that if you carved your name into a tree, it would remain as the tree grew throughout the years. This game was to change the face of gaming itself, and would be, as lead developer at Creators Lionhead Studios, Peter Molyneux declaimed proudly, the greatest game of all time. That game, of course, being Fable. And on September 14th, 2004, we finally got our hands on the next evolution in RPG gaming.
Oh my lord.
Well, I'm convinced Peter should be knighted! Today I revisit Fable for the first time since its release and get a fresh look at what the game has to offer in all its goofy highs and flat-out lies. Many of you will already be familiar with the outrage following the release of Fable, and just how many of the promises made by its lead developer Peter Molyneux were absent from the final product. Multiplayer, for example, was nowhere to be found after being promised at E3 building to its release, with not even the rest of the development team being informed of this feature prior to Peter's outburst, which must have been really fun for them. And of course the now notorious claim of the player being able to plant an acorn and see it grow as time passes, being just one of an embarrassingly long list of elements that now make up one of the greatest examples of overhyping and overpromising going incredibly wrong, with one of the worst results of this being that what the game actually had to offer being tinged with disappointment and resentment. But although close to 20 years ago now, I do remember enjoying my time with Fable, and today we dive in to see if it is indeed worth a look, and how it stacks up in the present day. The game begins with an introduction to our hero, as well as the land of Albion, narrated seemingly from a narrator kind enough to staple the microphone directly to his face.
Deep in the forest of Albion lay the small town of Oakvale.
Flowing seamlessly to the beginning of our journey, with our father asking us to find a present for our sister, whilst fighting a losing battle attempting to talk over the game's insanely loud soundtrack.
Don't tell me you forgot to get a one. Well, I'm not blaming you at this time, son.
With our task set, the game gets a chance to showcase the mechanics around the good and bad deeds. And while working up the few coins to buy chocolate from a man so shady that even the local livestock are trying to warn us, the game presents a set of tasks completable by being a good boy or a little tit, saving a smaller child from a bully.
It hurts! It hurts! It hurts!
Or choosing instead to smash up some of the farm's supplies after being asked to guard them, convinced by a cursed child forefather of Chucky.
Wouldn't you prefer to be smashing things? There's still time before he gets back!
The game also showing the player some of the freedoms afforded to them, being able to attack their local guards even as a child. As the introduction continues, we are whisked away to the Heroes Guild to begin our training under the guild's master, who even after decades within its walls still struggles to find his way around. Oh, fuck, wrong way. The game then takes us through the three pillars of the game's combat mechanics, those being melee, ranged, and magic attack modes of destruction. We are given our starter weapons and a final test before being sent out into the world to seek out our destiny.
The boy mastered the skills quickly.
Now released out into the world proper, we are free to work our way through the game's main and side quest content, while both enthralling and terrifying the locals with our actions and newly unlocked social abilities.
Yes, I am evil. Tell your friends. What?
You lunatic!
That scare you?
What's all this?
How about some of this?
Sorry.
Fable being light years from some of the claims pre-release, such as bars filled with locals reactively singing songs based on your current behaviours, does include some tools for interacting with the land's locals. Expressions such as belching and laughing to go along with more goofy options, such as Russian dancing, and once evil enough, unlocking the ability to thrust your evil willy at the world's inhabitants. Both the ability to interact with as well as the land's NPCs themselves can lead to some hilarious moments.
Scott, 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 Scott.
The quests in Fable are extremely linear compared to some of the titles on offer prior to Fable's release, but there are a couple of mechanics that give the game's quests some unique flavour. A number of quests are offered from either side of the alignment system, choosing to either protect or ransack a local trader camp, for example, with alternative rewards as well as of course granting more good or evil points depending on which you choose. The game also features a boasting mechanic, where you can stand before the world's citizens and set yourself additional conditions to complete when taking on a quest, for a big payout, with some of these being quite hard, so adding a nice amount of much needed challenge to some tasks. Making our way to the first town of Bowerstone, further interactions can be seen by the town's NPCs based on your appearance, alignment, as well as the current name you have associated with your character.
You carry the proud title, Arseface.
Certain hairstyles and outfits can increase your alignment as well as your attractiveness to the world's inhabitants, leading to them running from you in fear, and even falling for your chosen hero.
Hey,
We could meet up if you like. I need a wedding ring, I think.
Jesus, that escalated quickly. And while we're on the subject of instant satisfaction, if you find yourself enjoying the video, please consider dropping it a like and subscribing to the channel for all sorts of RPG and MMO greatness. It's free and it really does help to support the channel. The handful of gear sets that the game offers can be obtained via exploration hidden in chests or sold in the game's towns, but it would have been nice to have a few more available. Working further through the game's quests, the claim of your hero morphing in appearance based on which combat styles you adopt.
The bigger your sword, the bigger your weapon, the more your muscles will develop.
Comes to at least a partial realization within the game's leveling system. The more you use melee weapons, for example, the more strength XP you gain to spend on strength abilities. However, there's also general experience given out for all manner of tasks that the player could easily spend on whichever school of combat they desire without ever really needing to use it. The player hero growing larger the more he uses heavy weapons is actually achieved by spending experience points in the physique stat to incrementally bulk out along with increasing melee damage. The range of combat options on offer, although a far cry from the scaled old Cheeky Peter was promising, still provides the player with a decent range of modes of destruction, including some absolutely epic looking spells, and when they're so easily used together on the fly, makes for an enjoyable experience taking down foes working through the game's story.
Yeah, take a look at those cheeks. Arseface suits him alright.
Well, I never. And in front of the children.
The quests themselves are not exactly in abundance, but enjoyable for the most part, especially when coupled with the option to complete them in either an honourable or dishonourable way, and when woven into the game's plotline. After grabbing some gear, we meet up with another hero from the guild for a competition of who can take out the most enemies inhabiting a poor farm owner's land, and getting an introduction to the vicious Balverines, whilst completing everyone's favourite task of escorting non-combat NPCs through perilous lands, who seem to be more on the side of the Balverines and Hobbs than our poor arseface here. But we got the last laugh as down the road a bit decided to visit a nearby temple to accidentally on purpose sacrifice Mr. Cheery Pants to a demon god. On the subject of demons, it wasn't long until we bumped into another one of the game's quirky features, that being its demon doors. Living doors that will deliver sometimes cryptic clues as to what the player needs to bring to them to allow passage, usually to some quite worthwhile rewards.
Only by defeating another hero in combat will I open for you. Got that? I mean, how simple are you?
It only takes one look at the mouth wide open, gormless expression this man has 90% of the time to answer that one. These just being one of many elements that make Fable feel rich with charm and character, despite a clearly scaled back final release. From the goofy things NPCs come out with.
I didn't mean to. It was that door, man. I swear it sneezed all over me.
To small comic touches. Well, I approve of that entirely. And even how the land's inhabitants interact with you and each other. Arseface here, after making a name for himself for a variety of reasons. A ways into the story, got an opportunity to fight in the land's arena, tasked with taking on waves of the land's toughest enemies, which again was a nice addition, and well worked into the plotline, getting a chance to put on a performance so formidable that even the NPCs are too scared to approach him during the post-victory cutscene. With the game's main story wrapped up, it was nice to see, without spoiling too much, a number of boss fights included during the adventure. Although most incredibly easy, they were a nice addition and provided yet more, albeit unintentional, humour.
Don't worry about me. There's life in me still.
One of the biggest disappointments for me, at least both now and when I was a teenager, was the absence of multiplayer within the game. As we covered before, this was announced by naughty old Peter at E3 prior to the game's release, catching even the rest of his own development team by surprise, but would have been a great addition to roam the land of Albion's first outing with a friend.
You can learn it, and also it's got a little bit of expression on it, so because you can put it on these keys, on these keys here.
On the D-pad?
If you press it, you can go, shit. So when we're playing cooperative, quite often we walk down as a band and we go, shit, motherfucker, shit. And we're just sort of rapping, doing our own rap.
What I like about this one in particular is, what an oddly specific lie to tell. Like, multiplayer just wasn't in the game. The developers didn't even know about it. So the developers must have just been like, what are you talking about, Peter?
After returning to Fable close to 20 years following its release, I was slowly reminded why, even after such a massive overpromising of features and elements, the game drew such high praise, not to mention its 2 sequels. The game even now is just a fun world to be in. Not only the freedoms allowed to the player, pillaging an entire town to later buy up the newly emptied properties, but the overall silliness of it all. It would have been so easy for the game to come across a little bit overdone and a bit cringy when it comes to the over-the-top characters and daft nuances. But Fable, for me at least, hits the mark of being comical and fun without it coming across like goofy nonsense just for the sake of it. Fable's soundtrack also helps to amplify its fantasy adventure feel, with a great score throughout. The game unfortunately is incredibly easy, however with the boasting system can add some challenge, but still is far from the sort of challenging third-person RPG experience many have grown more accustomed to of late. In 2015 the game received a remaster with its Anniversary Edition that does add some quality of life features, supporting higher resolutions and allowing for controller support on PC, while also featuring updated visuals, but for me in the process loses some of the game's original charm along the way, with some of the remade characters coming across as straight up nightmare fuel. The Anniversary Edition also includes a higher difficulty mode to bring much needed challenge to its gameplay. Overall, despite Mr. Molyneux's habit of time and time again coming out with complete bollocks pre-release, Fable is linear, simplified, and a hardly challenging experience that still to this day is a joy to play through. Its humour and ridiculous delivery makes me glad that despite the broken promises, the game still came out with something that makes it stand out, even without all the promised crazy head-in-the-cloud mechanics. If you're looking for a game to take even remotely seriously, then Fable is not for you. On the other hand, if you're looking for something you can kick back and play through over a weekend, and maybe get a laugh or two along the way, then revisiting this impressively overhyped original entry may be just the thing you're looking for. Thank you so much for watching. Have you played the original Fable back in 2004 or more recently? As always, I'm keen to get your thoughts down in the comments. I'd like to give a big shout out to the channel members who help in supporting the channel and keeping the content coming. If anyone is interested in joining the channel as a member for all sorts of perks and exclusive videos, the info is down in the description. Thanks again for anyone making it this far, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Jesus, calm down! Oh dear Lord, what have I done?